How much does a self-built container house really cost? We're realizing container houses are a much more affordable alternative to traditional construction. But between the dream and reality, there's a budget to plan for, and it can quickly add up. To give you clear numbers, I made an ultra-detailed simulator. In this video, we'll use it together to estimate the real cost of your future house, item by item. We'll find out the real cost of a plot of land. If you have suggestions to improve this simulator, let me know in the video comments. Let me clarify, before finishing that, all the prices I'm going to give are for materials only. If you buy them as a self-builder, that's it. This is a simulator for self-builders. I suggest we start with the price of the land where we're going to set up our future container house. You should know we need a buildable plot of land. It's required. And then the price will vary depending on where you live, the size of the land, you already know that. However, what doesn't change is that in almost every case, you'll have to pay 8% in notary fees, which will go towards taxes for the state. And that's not the only tax you'll have, since there's also the development tax that you'll have to pay to the town hall and the department, and it will be proportional to the size of your house and to the town hall or department where you are. There are rates and a complex calculation, but I won't explain it here. It's in the simulator. You just have to enter how many square meters of living space you have, and it gives you an estimate. And if you want an even more precise estimate, I've included the government website, so you can find out exactly, down to the euro, how much you'll have to pay. Next, if the land is unserviced, meaning water and electricity aren't directly at the property's edge, expect to pay about 3,000 to 6,000 euros for the work. Lastly, budget 3,000, 6,000 euros for earthworks. So, for example, to create small parking spaces or to bury the water and electricity networks, from making the land suitable for building up to the house, and for a few other small improvements on the property. There you go. With these few elements, we're already starting off on a good foundation. We soon realize our land budget includes more than just the purchase price. It covers many other costs too. Small fees, small taxes, small works, so that we can actually start our shipping container house project. On our land, the first thing we're going to build will be the foundations to accommodate our future shipping containers. And here, for self-building, we have two options: making concrete pads or having helical piles installed. If we do the foundations ourselves, concrete pads are the obvious solution. But we'll still need to call in professionals to do a G2 soil study and a structural analysis to know how to size our pads. It's the cheapest solution, but in return, we don't have a 10-year warranty on the foundations, and we're not sure about what we're doing. And so for something as important as foundations, I would rather call in a professional. That's why, in this simulator, I didn't include the cost of these self-built pads. Instead, I compared having concrete pads made by a professional or having helical piles installed by a professional. There you go. I compared what is comparable. If you want to go through a contractor to make the concrete pads, you'll still need to do a study, conduct a G2 soil study, and hire a structural engineering firm to advise the contractor on proper pad sizing. So, taking all that into account, we're looking at about 400 euros per concrete pad. The price can obviously vary a lot depending on the type of soil you have and therefore the depth of the pad to be installed. Personally, I much prefer the second solution. These galvanized steel helical piles are screwed several meters into the ground and support up to 11 tons each. So that's more than enough for our type of house. With this solution, we're at about 600 euros per helical pile. But on the other hand, you don't necessarily need to do a G2 soil study, and above all, you don't need to call in a structural engineering firm. Because Technopure will size these piles internally with their own in-house engineering office. They know their products, they come to your site to drive a test pile to see at what depth there is enough stability for your house. Personally, I think it's a better solution, slightly more expensive, but simpler. We're working with professionals, not just craftsmen who may not specialize in making concrete pads, since that's not their main trade. And above all, we're using a solution that's much quicker to implement. Now let's get to the heart of the matter, shipping containers. Let's assume that whenever possible, we'll use second-hand containers. Because that's really everything. The point of this kind of house is to use one-trip containers and give them a second life for a low cost. A 20-foot dry shipping container, 6 m long, 2.39 m high, costs about 1,700 euros. But for a house, we usually go with high cube containers, which have a ceiling height of 2.69 meters. And unfortunately, those are very, very rarely found secondhand. And the new price is 3,000 euros. The most appealing house option is a 40-foot high cube container measuring 12 meters long and 2.69 meters high. That's the most interesting option. C, because those are the containers you find the most, and so they're the cheapest, at around 1,800 euros. At these prices, you have to add delivery, which is about 500 euros per container. And there you go, the base of our house is ready. Shipping container prices often change based on supply and demand. Let's get back to our shipping containers. The first step will be to connect them together, cut them, and especially to add reinforcements where necessary. On this YouTube channel, I've made 7 reports about houses made from shipping containers. Averaging these projects, I estimated you should budget about 1,000 euros as a base, plus 10 euros per square meter for this construction. If your house has several floors or needs extra reinforcement, the price rises to about 20 euros per square meter, because a lot more reinforcement is needed. In this price, I didn't include the cost of hiring a structural engineering firm because it's not mandatory, but it's highly recommended. If you start adding floors, overhangs, or unusual shapes, then you should expect to pay around 1,500 to 5,000 euros depending on how extravagant you get. With the structure ready, we can install windows and doors. A window with a roller shutter costs about 500 euros, while a sliding glass door with a roller shutter is around 2,000 euros. You can price your options, but it's hard to find anything cheaper since not just any window or door will work. With RE 2020, which is the thermal regulation, we are required to use windows and doors that are quite insulating, which ensure that we don't use too much energy for heating or cooling. In this price, I also have to include lots of small items like screws and ceiling joints. All the little accessories, let's say, that will be essential for installing your windows and doors. Now that we've returned to a watertight and airtight house, it's time to build a wooden structure all around our shipping containers to accommodate the insulation. Same here. I averaged the budget of all the container houses I visited. It's just an estimate. It's not the exact price, but it gives you a budget estimate for buying, the different brackets, the rafters, the framework, and especially the hundreds of screws you'll need. Depending on the shape of the house, it'll be about 45 euros per square meter of living space if you have a simple shape, like containers side by side. On the other hand, if you go for something more complex with multiple floors and more surface area to insulate, it can go up to 75 euros per square meter of living space. For insulation, it's the same. The budget depends greatly on your house's shape. And so the amount of insulation you'll need, but also, and most importantly, the type of insulation being used. I strongly advise you not to use low-quality insulation like polystyrene or polyurethane, for example. It may seem appealing short-term because it's cheaper, but long-term you'll be less insulated. In winter, you'll use more energy, and in summer, you'll be extremely hot. Right now, I'm working with about 10 people who are building their homes out of shipping containers, and we're collaborating with a thermal engineering firm, Evo Green. And in every case, every single time, we recommend they use wood wool for wall insulation and cellulose wadding for the roof. These are extremely efficient insulators, both in summer and winter. They are very eco-friendly, and above all, they are very easy to find and install. That's why we recommend them. For this insulation project, expect to pay about 100 to 120 euros per square meter of living space. Our containers are finally insulated and are no longer affected by either the cold or the heat. They're becoming a real home. To finish the roof, you can either make a flat roof with oriented strand board and ethylene propylene DNA monomer and then add vegetation, or make a sloped roof and cover it with steel sheeting or tiles, for example. There are a lot of different roofing options, and once again, the roof surface area will be completely different depending on the shape of your house. To simplify the calculation, I didn't give a price based on the number of square meters of the roof, but rather based on the livable square meters. Once again, I took the average of the 7 houses I went to visit. If you build a sloped roof with limited roofing, estimate about 35 euros per livable square meter. On the other hand, if you build a flat green roof, be careful, it costs more. And if you have more roof surface, then it will be closer to 75 euros per livable square meter in your house. It's the same thing with the walls. The budget can vary a lot depending on whether you use basic wood cladding, exotic wood cladding, or aluminum cladding, but which are much more expensive. In general, expect to pay between 40 and 70 euros per square meter of living space in your house. Once again, this is a rather incomplete estimate. To do this right, I should have asked how many square meters of walls you have before telling you the cost. The fact is that this simulator is there to give you a rough idea. You enter the surface area of your house, the living space, you roughly describe how it's built, and it gives you a rough estimate. If you really want a much more accurate estimate, go to the Ma Maison Conteneur website. Further, we'll look at your project together, and I can really give you a more precise budget. The simulator is just to see if you more or less have the ability to finance this, so that you don't, well, just have dreams that are unrealistic. We've completed the exterior shell of the house and can go back inside. And inside, now we'll have to do the floors, the walls, and quite a few little finishing touches. Again, the budget will vary greatly, depending on whether you use polyvinyl chloride flooring or go for exotic wood flooring or nice styles. Here, count between 60 and 100 euros per square meter of living space. For electricity and plumbing, there aren't really low-end or high-end options. Prices are similar overall. What will really impact your budget is something else. How many meters of cables or meters of pipes do you need? So, it will depend on the shape of your house, the length, and a lot of little factors like that. Count on 15-25 euros per square meter for electricity and 15-30 euros per square meter for plumbing. Finally, we'll discuss the water heater and the home's heating system. Be careful, this is an important expense. Don't buy junk, don't buy electric heaters and a basic, cheap electric water heater. Anyway, the thermal engineering offices won't let you choose that because it consumes way too much. It's inexpensive now but uses much more electricity over time. Instead, go for a thermodynamic water heater, a good heat pump. These are systems that consume very little and will save you money in the long run. It's much more worthwhile. Depending on your chosen systems, expect to pay about 60-100 euros per square meter of living space. And there you go. With all these elements, you have a range that's quite broad but still pretty accurate. For the budget you should set aside for your house. Container. Be careful, always add one last little line, a 10% margin. Why? Because even if you're very precise in your estimate, you're definitely going to forget a lot of little details. And that's going to add up to about 10% more to the budget. For all my projects, I've always taken a 10% margin and I've always used it. That's because there's always 10% of things I forget. So I add that as the last line in the table. The simulator is obviously very incomplete. I keep repeating it over and over. It's not designed for you to know exactly how much your house will cost. But it's really just to see if the house you have in mind can match your financing capacity with the budget you were hoping for. Share any suggestions to improve this simulator in the comments. I will modify it, I will resend it, then I will update the link in the description and send everyone the V2 simulator, if I ever make one. There you go, but I hope it was useful to you. Let me know what you thought in the comments of this video. Don't forget to subscribe to see the next reports, the next videos to really help you build your house with shipping containers. We've already made around 30 or 40 tutorials on this YouTube channel. If you're building a house with shipping containers, check out those videos. They'll help you. If you want my guidance, visit the My Maison Conteneur website. I can help you with your building permit, supervise your construction site, and even help design your house a bit, so it can be self-sufficient in energy, water, and everything else. Alright, thank you for watching this video until the end. This was Julian Melara. See you very soon on this channel. Ciao.